This episode is part of a two-part program, 2 episodes that are focused on the topic of supporting Montessori education for all. Now, the focus of these episodes is not just public Montessori education, but that is one of the ways that we are addressing it in these segments. I believe that the public sector Montessori schools are an essential part of our Montessori community. I would like to see all Montessori schools working together, all Montessori parents working together, and the fact of the matter is that one of the fastest growing segments of our community are Montessori schools that are frequently public charter schools. What we did in the first episode is we talked with a friend of mine about how certain positions can be put in place at these schools, including large private schools. I think that's a topic that would be helpful for them as well, but how positions in those schools can make things easier for Montessori educators in that situation. In this episode, we talk with someone who is on the ground, an educator, Debbie, who is working in a public Montessori school, and she talks a little bit about the challenges as she's stepping into that role. And we also talk with Carla from AMS. The American Montessori Society seeks to support Montessori education for all, whether it's private schools, public schools, and their resources are essential. What I wanted to basically encourage you to do in this introduction is make use of these resources. You're not in this alone. Whether you are a homeschooler doing Montessori all by herself or feeling like she is doing it all by herself at this point, or a public school Montessori educator who feels like he's doing it all by himself because he's the only male in his school, you're not alone. Use the resources through Facebook, through the American Montessori Society, through Association Montessori International USA. Use these different ways to be supported, to feel like you are part of a community and to lean on that community. That's what this show is about. It's about giving you resources and connecting you with other resources that can serve you. Before we switch over to the next segment, the interview that was done at the Unconference in conjunction with Montessori for Social Justice, a wonderful new growing organization, I do want to mention that we are making shifts and changes in our program, and one of the things that's going to happen is as soon as we finish episode 50, I'm going to be sending out a program guide, an episode guide to give all the different episodes that we've done for our first 50 programs, some links for the resources that may be helpful there, and some other resources that I think will be useful for you. If you have signed up with us on our YouTube channel or anywhere where we have your email address, you'll get that episode guide automatically. If you haven't done that yet, I encourage you, sign up on our website, sign up with us so that as we have these resources that are available to you, that we can get those out to make your job easier. This morning I'm talking with Carla from the American Montessori Society and Debbie from Inglewood Montessori School, is that correct?
Yes, in Chicago.
In Chicago. And we are all interested in what we can do to help more children experience Montessori education and to help educators that are seeking to do this in the schools and find solutions for them. So I would like both of you to just mention briefly how you feel like your organization is doing that. So I'm going to ask Carla to just talk about AMS for a moment.
Okay. Well, AMS is the American Montessori Society, is the largest Montessori group of professionals certainly in the United States. We have 14,000 members, so we have teacher training programs, schools, and individual members. So we comprise that group, and we train about 2,000 teachers a year. So we our goal is to improve schools and improve the teaching experience for teachers, basically.
Thank you, Carla. And my experience with AMS is that they are so helpful to those who are members of AMS, as well as any public school Montessori teachers, anyone else, including Montessori parents who are seeking to do more that they'd like to do with their children. So Debbie, tell us a little bit about Inglewood and what you're doing.
Well, Inglewood is brand new for me. I've been in Montessori since the 70s, teaching in private Montessori schools, the head of the school. And I always felt what brought me to Montessori was its focus on really developing really good people, and it should be available to more people. So I'm just going to be starting with the Montessori School of Inglewood, which is the first public charter school in Chicago. And they have a wonderful mission and a wonderful community that are working together to bring Montessori to more kids.
Oh, so, that is wonderful, Debbie.
Yeah.
Well, Debbie, I know anytime you start a new position, anytime you start a new school, there are tremendous challenges. Maybe you could tell us about one challenge you feel like you're making progress on. Maybe you haven't solved it, but tell us the challenge and how you're moving in the right direction.
Well, I think the big challenge when you change a position is to understand the culture of the community that you're moving into. You can't assume that who you were and the way you reacted is what you should do now. So I think you need to be patient and you need to listen a lot. And I think I'm making progress. I talk a lot. So being patient and listening is a skill that I have to really work on. And I'm working on it.
Well, and Debbie, I'm so glad you said that. I think especially when we're working with children and families in public Montessori, we need to never assume that we know their challenges, that we know why they came to us as Montessorians or a school, and listen to them, find out what it is that they're seeking in a school, and find out what they even think they're getting with Montessori education. Well, Carla, tell us some of the things that AMS is doing specifically to help public Montessori schools with the challenges that they're facing.
Actually, and that's one of the reasons I'm here at the unconference, is to listen. I must say that being a good listener is a skill I'm trying to develop. And so I want to hear what the public schools have to say, what their needs are. Certainly some of the identified from conversations, some of the identified needs are, how do you attract teachers that have, usually they need their state certification and their Montessori credential. That is a challenge because there's a huge need for teachers in the public and private sector. And then aligning the Montessori principles or the pedagogy with Common Core guidelines that schools have, that's another challenge. Those two are the big things that I have heard. So we're working on that, and the goal is to provide the tools for schools to do their job better.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things I love about what AMS is doing is that, particularly with the big job that Montessori educators have, we have to make sure that we're not all doing the same thing rather than sharing the burden. Yeah. And I think AMS is doing that in a beautiful way.
Thank you.
Well, Debbie, the last question that I'm going to ask you is, what are you doing to both attract the teachers that you want and support them in this challenging role at your school?
Well, again, I'm so new. I really haven't started yet, but I've been at the school. It's hard to attract the teachers. I'm surprised. I assumed there'd be more experienced teachers who would be coming to the public Montessori, but I don't see that happening. And that is sort of a surprise to me. So there's a lot of new teachers who are very enthusiastic, but they need a lot of support. They need the vision, but they also need to see how the practical is going to merge with that vision, so that they can meet the needs of their students. So,
and I think sometimes in a public setting, I don't know if this is true for your school, Debbie, but you'll have a whole new classroom of students,
right,
not just a new level,
right.
But you'll have 3,
that.
4, and 5-year-olds all together, and then all of a sudden you're a new teacher, and classroom management is a new skill that you have to develop, and you don't have those role models in the older students, especially for newer schools. So I think that's a challenge.
Well, it sounds like both of you are presenting two challenges I'm hearing in particular. One is how we attract and probably keep Montessori educators in the schools, public schools especially, and classroom leadership and management, how we teach them
definitely.
those nitty-gritty day-to-day things they need to do. Well, is there anything you have thought of as we've been talking that you would just like to say to close your time with us and our viewers?
Wow.
Debbie,
you go first.
I'm just really glad to be here. My life seemed to sort of fall into place with public Montessori. And then this sort of happened, and here I am. And I'm meeting a lot of good people, and even at 4 a.m. was having a discussion with somebody last night about some of the issues and some of my concerns, and she was very helpful. So I think this network is really important, and I'm really glad that we have it.
Absolutely. Carla?
One of the things that I've been spearheading that will probably roll out this fall is that we're going to have an online discussion group called Caucus for public and charter school people, either principals or teachers, and to identify, so they will speak up much about what their concerns are, and then there will be a sharing of the experience of the other members of the caucus. So I think that'll be really exciting.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I will plan to see both of you in Chicago next
good.
spring for our next AMS conference. And we thank you so much for taking your time from your busy day today.
Great.
In our second segment, we give recommendations on how to put Montessori into practice, how to make those practical connections. In order to do Montessori cosmic education, you must be well educated in this area. We recommend books that, even though they are for adults, they are very entertaining and easily accessible, even if you're feeling a little burned out. These recommendations are for books in the areas of big history, as well as other books that will help you to be ready to present cosmic education from an informed perspective. One concept of Montessori education is that we meet people where they are. And a lot of times I think that this focus is thought of a little more narrowly than it should be. If you're meeting a learner where he or she is, you must take into consideration the reading level, and I think most people kind of think of that right off the bat, but also you must take into consideration his or her preferred learning style, the amount of cultural literacy, the background information that that person has coming into the next thing that they're going to be studying, and even their level of tiredness. During the segments that I am putting together over what is school break time in the United States, I am focusing a lot on meeting burnt out educators where they are. And so I'm going to give some suggestions for ways to get more interested in history, ways to add to your own understanding of history as well as that of your students. This is going to be a little bit focused on history books for educators to study so that they are up to speed when they are presenting this important topic to their students. But of course, some of these books could be used in the classroom as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the ones that have some special attributes to them and how you would want to present them so that the children could use them respectfully. And the focus is on two sides of history. One is big history. That is the focus that we take with cosmic education in the Montessori environment, especially for elementary students. How do we give them a big picture of the world, starting from the creation of the universe? Some of these books are very much about the traditional history period that we think of, which is the time that human beings have been writing down their own history. The first book that I want to share with you is a history book that National Geographic puts out with 20 removable facsimile documents. And this is one of the reasons that I think that this book is so engaging. Now, each of these documents comes in a little folder that was originally attached into the book. That's why there's a little post-it note that says page 73 here, because that's where it originally was in the book. I cut them out of the book so that this book could be used by upper elementary students and they could treat the facsimiles respectfully. But it's a wonderful overview of a wide range of history with a lot of beautiful images and timeline resources along the bottom. Now, I am going to show you one of the facsimiles and mention how I used it with the students just in case you would want to be doing that. The facsimiles come in little folders like this, about I think 5 or so in each one, and these are folded up. And I've mentioned before that things that are folded up tend to get worn out really easily. So I never had this book out for very long, or the facsimiles. I would have the packet out just for maybe 3 weeks, and the students had a few little guidelines. One was that you didn't visit with the friends who were using the material with you while you were folding or unfolding the facsimiles. So you were able to give full attention to getting them set out on your rug with respect. And this is a old-fashioned map of the skies that gave the students a sense of how old this knowledge is in human history and the style of the period, as well as the understanding of the universe at that time. This is a copy of the Planispherium Celeste from circa 1700. These maps show the constellations in allegorical form of the northern and southern hemispheres, and then give some more information there. So the students were fascinated, and it gave me a chance to talk to them about good sources. It gave me a chance to say, hey, this is something that was created in that time frame. And here I am violating my own rule. I'm talking to you while I'm trying to put a facsimile away, and I'm having trouble doing so without creating problems with it. So I encourage you to use things like that to teach the students about quality of sources, talking about original sources, secondary sources. Obviously, these are facsimiles. You would define for the students that this isn't the map. This is an exact photograph of the original historic document. So it gives us a lot of really good source information. Now, some other books that I recommend for big history are, of course, Stephen Hawking's Universe. That's always a good one. Here is one called Big History from Big Bang to the Present by Cynthia Stokes Brown. It was a winner of the American Book Award. Again, you meet students where they are. If these seem a little overwhelming to you, I have more to come. Maps of Time, An Introduction to Big History by David Christian. And I think that's most of the ones that go all the way from the history of the universe on up. Now, I do think it's a lot of fun to study a course of things through real objects. Now, obviously, these are photographs, but this book is a history of the world in 100 objects. So this author has made choices about which 100 objects best represent the historic period from the hand axe to the credit card. A similar approach to big history is 100 diagrams that changed the world. So this is something that I think is a fascinating way to approach that, not quite as big as the ones that I first started with. Now, if you're finding that you are a burnt out educator and you want something a little bit lighter, I've mentioned before, don't feel like if you are confining yourself to children's books that you are not doing some good research. Science Works, Monster Bones, the story of a dinosaur fossil. I learned things the first time that I read that book. And here is a cartoon history of the Earth, volumes 1 through 3, The Birth of the Earth, Life Finds Its Feet, and The Day of the Dinosaurs. And as you can guess, it's a kind of a graphic novel approach to this subject. Now, if you're ready to go a little bit more sophisticated, but you would like to have that graphic novel approach, then you could do the cartoon history of the universe, volumes 1 through 7 from the Big Bang to Alexander the Great. Now, this is actually quite a series. It goes all the way up to the present, and there's an American history volume as well All of those are by Larry Gonick, so that is one approach. A couple of other history books that I have really enjoyed that kind of overtly address the ways that we may have been miseducated. Lies My Teacher Told Me and Past Imperfect, History According to the Movies. And what this book does is it explains where the movies got it right and where they got it wrong. And this, of course, is exposing some of the lies that have been in American textbooks. Mostly it's about American history, that one is. So the last book that I'm going, or the last two books that I'm going to recommend, sometimes we don't know the whole story. Now, you can kind of tell from my Post-it notes how far I am in this book, but I love it so far. Darwin's Lost Theory of Love. Now, this author is definitely on a mission, a labor of love in putting this book out into the world. He believes that Darwin's work has been very much misinterpreted. If you're going to teach evolution as an elementary Montessori professional, as I think you should, I think this is an important piece that you might be missing. And the last thing that I'm going to say is, if it's a fun book for children, it may be a fun book for you. Any of you who have heard me do very many segments may know that I shop at the American store Costco, and they usually have a wonderful book aisle with a lot of fun books that are very engaging and entrancing. And just because they're for children and meant to attract them doesn't mean that can't be the way that you organize your studies over the summer. So I encourage you to educate yourself. Find resources that will be enjoyable for you to learn more about the details of cosmic education and the big history that we want to share with the children.
In case you missed it, in episode 43, we give many children's book recommendations in this area that can be wonderful for educators to use to update themselves over the summer. This essentially is Preparing for Cosmic Education Part 1, whereas the segment of this episode is Part 2.
Not that long ago, I was in the position of taking over the responsibility for being the lead educator in an upper elementary Montessori classroom in a public school, a charter public school. And it was a huge responsibility. I found that it challenged me on several different levels. I had a lot of Montessori background. I had taught older children within an elementary classroom that mostly included younger children, but that was my first time teaching children from age 9 to 12 and being responsible for the Montessori curriculum for children who would be the equivalent of 4th, 5th, and 6th graders in the United States. Not only was I responsible for teaching them the Montessori curriculum, but I was also responsible for the state standards for the school where I was teaching, because that's the nature of teaching Montessori in a public school. And I found myself completely overwhelmed. If it wasn't parent communication or a behavioral challenge in the classroom or not knowing how to keep track of the progress on all of those state standards for which I was responsible, making sure the children made progress, it was just the whole situation of that new routine. I have found that if you do everything for someone, it's not a good thing. They don't learn very well, but I've also found that if you expect someone to do more than they can possibly do in the hours that they have available, they are definitely not going to succeed nor serve the children in the best way. So I have created something that I am calling a Montessori CoOp, a co-op for consulting that allows those schools that have educators starting out or who are very new to the Montessori classroom to have some of those responsibilities done for them and to have a way to check in, a way to have observations done by an experienced Montessori educator who can give them good feedback and help them learn how to find the solutions that they need. If you are looking for parent newsletters, lesson plans, correlation from the Montessori curriculum to the Common Core state standards of the United States. This is something that I can help you with. Our cooperative can allow you for a very reasonable amount of money to have some of these things done for your teachers. Allow them to be at their best. Allow them to learn from where they're starting. Meet them where they are. Let them have Montessori education be as joyful an experience as you are seeking to provide for the students in your school. If we can help you, we are happy to be that resource that lets your students and your teachers make the most of the coming school year.